Okay, so um, we're diving into all this stuff about organizations becoming like neural networks.
Yeah.
You sent over a ton of research papers and case studies, even some frameworks,
Yeah.
all kind of buzzing about this idea.
Right.
So we're going to go deep on how organizations are evolving
Yeah.
to be more adaptable
Yeah.
and intelligent,
Right.
almost like rewiring their DNA for the age of AI.
What's so fascinating is we're seeing a shift,
Yeah.
not just in technology, but in how organizations are structured
Yep.
and how people work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it looks like there's this idea of augmented leadership
Yeah.
where leaders are using AI to boost their decision making.
Right.
Is that something you're seeing kind of across the board?
It's definitely a growing trend.
Okay.
The research suggests that AI can help leaders process information faster,
So,
spot patterns they might have missed, and
yeah.
make more informed decisions.
So AI isn't replacing leaders.
Right.
It's making them better.
Exactly. It's about creating a partnership between human intuition and AI's analytical power.
Okay, so leaders are adapting.
Yeah.
But what about the rest of us?
Right.
How are employees adjusting to this whole AI integration thing?
Well, the research really emphasizes the importance of something called digital resilience.
Oh, okay.
Basically, it's the ability to adapt to new technologies, bounce back from setbacks,
Okay.
and keep learning.
So it's not just about technical skills.
Right. Okay.
It's about mindset.
It's about being open to change,
Yeah.
willing to experiment, and comfortable with learning new things constantly.
And how do organizations create that kind of culture?
Yeah.
It seems like a pretty big shift.
It is a shift.
Yeah.
This research points to the idea of organizations becoming more like neural networks themselves,
Okay.
which means they need to be adaptable and interconnected.
Okay, I'm picturing like a brain.
Right.
With all these different parts working together.
Yeah.
But how does that actually play out in a real company?
Think about communication.
Okay.
In a neural organization, information flows freely.
Yeah.
Across different teams and departments, kind of like synapses firing in the brain.
So breaking down those traditional silos?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And decision-making becomes more decentralized, with teams having the authority to act quickly and adapt to changes in their environment.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it also sounds like a potential recipe for chaos.
Right.
How do you keep things from falling apart?
That's where leadership comes in.
Okay.
The research emphasizes the importance of what they're calling adaptive bridge strategies.
Okay.
It's about guiding the transition, setting clear goals, and providing the support and resources that teams need to succeed.
So leaders are like the architects of this new organizational structure.
Right.
But they also need to be the bridge builders.
Yeah.
Helping everyone cross over to this new way of working.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And one of the key challenges they face is managing change. People naturally resist change.
Yeah.
So leaders need to be really intentional about how they communicate the vision, involve employees in the process, and address their concerns.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
No one likes to feel like they're being dragged along for the ride.
Right.
But how do you actually convince people that this whole neural organization thing is a good idea, especially when it might mean their jobs are changing?
That's where communication is key.
Okay.
The research highlights the importance of being transparent about the goals of AI integration, explaining how it will benefit both the organization and the employees.
Okay, so it's not just about implementing AI.
Right.
It's about explaining the why behind it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's about showing, not just telling, sharing success stories, highlighting early wins, and demonstrating how AI can actually make people's jobs easier or more fulfilling can be really powerful.
I guess seeing is believing.
Right.
But what about the practical side of things?
Yeah.
How do you actually go about restructuring an organization to be more like a neural network?
Yeah.
Do you just flip a switch?
It's definitely not a flip the switch kind of thing.
Okay.
The research suggests two main approaches.
Okay.
The Big Bang approach and the transitional approach.
Let's break those down.
Okay.
Big Bang versus transitional.
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons?
The Big Bang approach is all about making a rapid, radical shift.
Okay.
You reorganize everything at once, implement new technologies across the board, and change the entire organizational structure overnight.
Sounds intense.
Yeah.
What are the advantages of that?
Well, it can create a sense of urgency and momentum.
Okay.
It's a clear signal that things are changing
Uh-huh.
and everyone needs to get on board.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be faster in terms of seeing results.
But I imagine there's some downsides too.
Definitely. It
Yeah.
can be very disruptive and risky.
Yeah.
You're basically upending the entire organization at once, which can lead to confusion resistance and even chaos.
So probably not for the faint of heart.
Right.
What about the transitional approach?
The transitional approach is more gradual and incremental.
Okay.
You start with pilot projects,
Mhm.
test out new technologies in specific areas, and gradually roll out changes over time.
That sounds a lot less disruptive.
Right.
What are the benefits of that approach?
It's less risky
Okay.
and gives people time to adapt.
Well.
You can learn from your mistakes along the way and make adjustments as needed.
Yeah.
And it can be less overwhelming for employees.
But I imagine there are some downsides to that too.
Of course.
Yeah.
It can take longer to see results.
Okay.
And it requires a lot of careful planning and execution to ensure that all the pieces fit together.
So no easy answers there.
Right.
It sounds like choosing the right approach
Yeah.
really depends on the specific organization, its culture, and its goals.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. But the research provides some helpful frameworks
Okay.
for assessing organizational readiness, identifying key challenges, and developing a tailored implementation strategy.
Okay, so we've talked about leadership, organizational structure, change management.
Right.
But there's one big elephant in the room that we haven't addressed yet.
You're talking about compensation, right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
How does all this impact how people are paid? Does the traditional salary and bonus structure even work in a neural organization?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
Especially with all this talk about hybrid jobs
Right.
and AI changing the way we work.
Yeah.
Do traditional compensation models even make sense anymore?
So what are the alternatives?
Yeah.
How do you design a compensation structure for a world where jobs are constantly evolving
Right.
and teams are more fluid?
Well, one approach that's gaining traction is skills-based compensation. Instead of paying people for a specific job title,
Yeah.
you pay them for the skills they bring to the table.
Okay, so it's less about what's your job
Right.
and more about what can you do.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the value of continuous learning
Yeah.
and rewarding people for developing new skills that are relevant to the organization's evolving needs.
That makes a lot of sense in a world where AI is constantly changing the game.
Right.
What are some of the other compensation models being explored?
Another interesting approach is contribution-based compensation.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing solely on individual performance, you factor in how people contribute to the success of the team or the organization as a whole.
So it's more about collaboration
Right.
and collective achievement.
It's about recognizing that in a neural organization,
Yeah.
success depends on everyone working together and sharing knowledge freely.
That sounds great in theory,
Yeah.
but how do you actually measure contribution?
Right.
It seems kind of subjective.
That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
It requires a shift in mindset, away from traditional performance metrics and towards more holistic ways of assessing value.
So instead of just looking at individual sales numbers or code output,
Yeah,
you're looking at how people are helping the team as a whole to achieve its goals.
exactly.
Okay.
It might involve things like peer feedback, 360-degree reviews, or even AI-powered tools that can analyze communication patterns and collaboration dynamics.
It definitely sounds more complex than just handing out bonuses based on individual performance,
It is.
but it also seems more fair in a way.
That's the argument many researchers are making.
Okay.
They say that these new compensation models can foster a more collaborative, equitable, and ultimately more successful work environment.
So what advice does the research give to leaders who are trying to navigate all this?
Yeah.
How do you actually implement these new compensation models in a way that's both fair and effective?
Well, one key piece of advice is to involve employees in the process.
Okay.
Get their input, address their concerns, and explain how the new system will benefit them.
Transparency and communication again.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Change is always easier when people feel like they're part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And when it comes to something as sensitive as compensation,
Right.
transparency is key.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What else should leaders be thinking about?
Another important consideration is alignment.
Okay.
Make sure your compensation model is aligned with your organizational goals and the principles of a neural organization.
So if you're trying to create a more collaborative and adaptable culture,
Right.
your compensation system should reward those behaviors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it needs to be flexible enough to evolve as the organization evolves
Hmm.
and as AI continues to change the nature of work.
It sounds like designing a compensation system for a neural organization is almost as complex as designing the organization itself.
It's a big challenge. But it's also an exciting opportunity to rethink the way we value work
Right.
and reward contribution in the age of AI.
Okay, so we've talked about leadership structure, change management,
Yeah.
and even compensation.
Right.
But we haven't really touched on the ethical implications of all this.
You're right.
Maybe
As
not.
with any major technological shift,
Right.
there are important ethical considerations that need to be addressed.
What are some of the key concerns that come up in the research?
One big concern is bias.
Okay,
AI systems are only as good as the data they're trained on.
right.
And if that data reflects existing biases,
Yeah.
then the AI will perpetuate those biases.
So if you're using AI to make decisions about hiring promotion or even compensation,
Right.
you need to be really careful about ensuring that the AI isn't discriminating against certain groups of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the data itself. It's also about the algorithms that are being used.
So even if the data is unbiased, the way the AI processes that data can still introduce bias.
Right.
Okay.
It's a complex issue that requires a deep understanding of both the technical aspects of AI
Yeah.
and the social and ethical implications.
So what are some of the steps that organizations can take to mitigate these risks?
Well, one important step is to have diverse teams working on the development and implementation of AI systems.
So not just a bunch of tech bros in a room somewhere.
Exactly.
Okay.
You need people with different backgrounds, perspectives, and lived experiences to ensure that the AI is being designed and used in a way that is fair and equitable.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What else can organizations do?
Another key step is to establish clear ethical guidelines for the use of AI.
So setting boundaries for what the AI is allowed to do and how it
Right.
can be used.
And these guidelines need to be constantly reviewed and updated as AI technology evolves
Right.
and new ethical challenges emerge.
It sounds like navigating the ethical landscape of AI is an ongoing process.
Absolutely. It requires a commitment to continuous learning, open dialogue, and a willingness to adapt as our understanding of AI and its implications continues to evolve.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about how organizations are becoming more like neural networks,
Right.
the rise of augmented leadership,
Yeah.
the importance of digital resilience,
Yeah.
and the challenges of change management. We've even explored new compensation models and the ethical considerations of AI.
It's a lot.
It's clear that the integration of AI is not just about technology.
Right.
It's about a fundamental shift in how we think about work leadership and even what it means to be human in the workplace.
It's a truly transformative shift.
Yeah.
And the research you've shared offers some really practical guidance for navigating this uncharted territory.
Absolutely. And as we move further into the age of AI, it's clear that this is just the beginning of a long and fascinating journey.
So we've talked about all these changes happening now.
Yeah.
But what about the future? What does the research say about the long-term implications of AI and neural organizations?
Well, one of the key themes that emerges is this idea of coevolution.
Okay.
It's this idea that AI won't just change the way we work, it will actually change us as humans.
Coevolution.
Yeah.
So we're not just adapting to AI, we're
Right.
actually evolving alongside it.
Exactly.
The research suggests that as we interact with AI more and more, it will actually shape our cognitive abilities, our ways of thinking, and even our values.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
Right.
So what does that mean for the future of humanity?
Yeah.
Are we all going to become cyborgs or something?
Not necessarily cyborgs,
Okay.
but the lines between human intelligence and artificial intelligence will definitely become more blurred.
Yeah.
We might see things like brain-computer interfaces becoming more common,
Okay.
allowing us to directly interact with AI systems using our thoughts.
Well, that's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know.
But what about the potential downsides? Are there risks to this kind of coevolution?
There are definitely risks to consider.
Okay.
One concern is that we might become too reliant on AI, losing some of our own cognitive abilities or critical thinking skills.
So it's important to find that balance between leveraging AI's power
Right.
and maintaining our own human agency.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there are also concerns about the potential for AI to be used for malicious purposes,
Right.
whether it's by governments, corporations, or even individuals with bad intentions.
So as AI becomes more powerful, it's even more important to have those ethical guidelines and regulations in place that we
Yes.
talked about earlier.
Right, and it's also important to have open and honest conversations
Mm-hmm.
about the potential implications of AI and coevolution,
Yeah.
both the good and the bad.
Right.
We need to be thoughtful and intentional about how we shape this future.
Okay, so we're talking about brain-computer interfaces,
Yeah.
coevolution, the future of humanity.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around.
Yeah.
But what does all this mean for the average person listening right now?
Mm.
What can they do to prepare for this future of work that's rapidly changing?
Well, one of the most important things is to embrace lifelong learning.
Okay,
The skills that are in demand today might be obsolete tomorrow.
right.
So you need to be constantly updating your knowledge and skills.
So it's not about getting that one degree or certification
Right.
and then coasting for the rest of your career.
Not anymore.
Okay.
The future of work is all about adaptability, agility,
Mm-hmm.
and continuous learning.
What are some other things people can do to future-proof themselves?
Develop your soft skills,
Okay.
especially things like communication, collaboration, and problem solving.
Mm,
These are skills that AI can't easily replicate
yeah.
and will be even more valuable in the future.
So it's not just about being good with tech.
Right.
It's about being good with people.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
don't be afraid to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Take risks and step outside your comfort zone. The future of work will reward those who are adaptable, curious, and willing to embrace change.
It sounds like the future of work is both challenging and exciting.
It is.
It's a future where humans and AI will work together in ways we can't even imagine yet.
It's a future full of possibilities.
Yeah.
And by embracing the principles of neural organizations, augmented leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and human-centered design, we can create a future of work that is both innovative and inspiring.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Yeah.
We've explored how organizations are becoming more like neural networks.
Mm-hmm.
But here's a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
If organizations are evolving, what does that mean for the evolution of individuals within those organizations?
It's a good question.
What skills and mindsets will be essential for thriving in these new neural structures?
Right.
Are we all becoming nodes in a giant interconnected system?
Something to think about.
Keep those questions in mind as you continue your own exploration of this fascinating topic.